Good evening, all, or is it a good evening? The Cooper Classic has finished, and sadly for Leicester fans, it's finished 3-1 to Nottingham Forest. I think on the overall balance of play, a well-deserved result for them. They take home the East Midlands derby. I'm joined today. I've got a special guest. We've got Manny, also making his instant match reaction debut. Also joined by Neil from Beyond the 90 and Luke at Leicester City Down Under. Manny, I'm going to start with you, but just before you do, I'll run off some stats and just show you what happened. So 3-1 was the final result. Here was the XG and the stats. You can see that Forest, despite not having as much possession, 35%, a lot more of the XG, many more big chances, 20 shots they had in total. We didn't force them into a goalkeeper save, although we did score a goal. More corners for them also. Here's a look at the match ratings according to SofaScore. You can see Chris Wood, the star man, with 2 goals. Absolutely superb one from him for his first. And I've got to say, Cads on the Doy also having a strong game. Wout Fatu, you can see here, not with the best rating there, 5.9. And yeah, momentum, you can see it was pretty close. But other than that, didn't do too well. So we'll go through this in a moment. But Manny, talk to me. What are your feelings about Nottingham Forest 3, Leicester City 1?
I'm pleased overall. Short-term pain, long-term gain. So didn't work today, but this is the start of something. This is the start of, I think, what the players do want. I think we had 65% of the ball, even though we lost 3-1. This is a classic sort of Leicester City old school smash and grab where we have 35% of the ball and we score lots of goals. And Forest were efficient. They were strong. They were good. But there were individual errors, I think, that cost us today. At half-time, we were feeling pretty confident, pretty good. Came out in the second half, and instant sucker punch, and then the game just never got going in the second half for us. But I'm going to use a word I don't normally like to use, but positives from the first half I'm going to take.
I agree. Neil, let me come to you. Just going to run through some comments. I've just joined. I know no one played well in that back four. Justin's going for Vardy's consecutive goals run, but being at fault in goals. Awful player. Not his best performance there. Just Joe Football Show.
Joe's here.
Enjoying the Prem, lads.
Enjoying the Prem,
we are
the Championship, mate.
Well, no need to dig in. Yeah,
he's a Leeds, big Leeds. Shout out, Joe. Big Leeds
All
fan
three
on
of
the channel, but again,
yeah,
still better than the Premiership. It's better than Championship, mate. So you can say there.
All 3 of the Forest goals were errors. Can't do that in the PL. I do agree, but I think you have to say they hit the post twice, and Yates probably should have scored one as well. Do you think Cooper will try this tactic again after the loss from Big Man Matt? I'll come to that a bit later in the show. Pitiful from Grey Forever Fox and Simon K. Nice to think the start of something, but more likely Cooper will abandon and go back to IU, etc. We'll get to there. So yeah, I tell you what, let me go to you, Luke. What did you make of that match overall? Give me your thoughts.
First half, really exciting. Really enjoying the passages of play. Thought this is going to look proper dangerous. Going to enjoy watching this moving forward. Second half, calamitous. 3 stupid errors. And you know what? Like, I will be interested to see if we keep playing this style going forward. I think we need to, and I agree with everything that Manny said. But I'm to be honest with you, though, whether it's this system or what we were doing before, whatever that was, I'm sick of seeing a game of 2 halves. To be honest with you, and like drastically different 2 halves as well.
Yeah, why do you think that was then? So I think that our kind of overall take on it is first half was pretty good. Again, an individual error, but a really nice second goal. Good possession. The patterns of play were there. We come out from the second half a bit slow. And you know what's really frustrating with that goal? It's a brilliant finish. You've got to say Chris Wood, clinical. But you know, we could have played it out easier. I think Wings tries to play it into Fatu, who loses it. So what's wrong? Well, I'll tell you what, we've got another special guest who's joined. It's full house on a Friday night. Let me ask you. So, Locks, talk to me. Start that second half. What's gone wrong?
You know what, mate? I actually don't know what happened. It's weird because many games this season, like we went into half time thinking, God, that was shit. And we came out looking like a much better side, and it was just a complete opposite tonight. Like, I don't know, you know, if he normally gives the players a kick up the arse at half time, I don't know what he's done today, whether he's been there massaging their calves or what, because they've come out so relaxed and just asleep. I don't know. But that Wout FaZe, I'm blaming FaZe for that I don't know if anybody else is or if people are blaming Hermanson, but I think that's phase. I think it's awful defending. I mean, the first half, it was the best half of football so far this season, and we follow it with that shit in the second half. Shocking, mate. Really,
Absolutely
really
agree.
bad.
Manny, I want to come to you because you might have something to say about this. Buonanotte got to learn not to dribble in a crowd in his own box. No matter how good you think you are, don't take that kind of risk. And I'd like to get your overall take on his play, because I think this was probably his worst game for Leicester, maybe you could say, so far.
I thought he struggled a little bit and he was playing a little bit like an individual. And the key about this system is you have to fit as part of the structure. And it's notable that he wasn't here under Enzo, so he doesn't really exactly know where exactly he's positioned, where he's supposed to be, his link-up play with which individual when, his distances, his shape retention, and he was trying to dribble a bit too much, trying to be a bit too individual, shooting. I think he had 2 or 3 long efforts. I think he's had 3-4 days trying it. It's got to give the guy some time, right?
Yeah, I don't think positionally he was too bad. I think he was just a bit greedy, to be honest with you. Going to come to some more comments and just pass it over to you, Neil. But look, I want to say first and foremost, respect where it's due. I will say that I think Forest are very good. They played a very, very effective game. They just made it solid. They bullied us, I think, in midfield when they had it. They won the physical battle. They took their chances. They were clinical. The wingers looked sharp all night. Wood wasn't that much involved in the first half, but wow, he was obviously on it the second half, took his goals. I will say I think we played into their hands a little bit that second half. That after going 3-1 down, we just kept trying to smash crosses into the box against 2 of the most aerially dominant centre-halves in the division, when in the first half we were trying to go on the ground and we looked more effective. Neil, let me come to you. Let me throw you this comment to maybe give you a bit of a conversation starter. It was the most Enzo ball type of game. There may be an issue as they wasn't being drilled in playing out like Enzo did.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the thing is, without sounding too cliche, the first half, we were absolutely over the moon. Again, we were on Lox's stream going, look, if we keep doing like this, we're going to get something from the game. We're playing good football. And we started to risk. When we started playing safe and started to feel a bit sorry for ourselves, like we've done under Steve Cooper a little bit of time, we regressed in the game. Now, it was a tale of 2 halves. We did let some bad opportunities go through, and we were trying. There's a few frustrating things we were doing in the second half, but in the first half, just to see that team, and I think one of the first comments tried to call me out saying this team isn't capable of, you're deluded to talk about top 10. I think if we play the Enzo system effectively, this team can potentially by the end of the season get a top 10. I think I said a 14th by the end, but there were certain things to be excited about. However, again, this is probably one of the men that we need to talk about, because there's some really exciting signs here. But the question is the narrative. If you are like Steve Cooper, if you're a fan of Steve Cooper's style, well, this is why he didn't play it. We've lost 3 goals against Nottingham Forest at home. The rhetoric will be coming out regarding this, but I think the scoreline doesn't reflect the actual game and the performance, even though it could have been 6 or 7-0, which is a crazy thing to say.
I'm not sure I agree with that. I think the scoreline is I think it does reflect it. But I know what you're saying. I know the point, what you're trying to make. So you know what, Luke, I'm going to come to you and I give you a comment as well. So I want you to just give me in general the whole thing. So fair play. Jay, definitely a Forest fan. Hudson-Odoi cooked Pereira. He did get booked. So let's talk about the story of this game. So the story of this game was that finally, this was Ricky last week, and this week he's back in the team. And yeah, as we said right at the start of the game, he was playing the inverted fullback role. So he's come in here and we're playing this 5. So we've got the 3-2 build-up shape. And in fact, the goal, I'll definitely do this on the post-match analysis, you will see is because him and Winks combine brilliantly together. But, give me overall, what was your feeling on Ricky P today? And the whole situation?
Okay, so first of all, I thought that, there's a few times he had a dodgy touch of pass, but other than that, mate, he was excellent in terms of his positioning and setting up play. And I think it's just going to be a matter of giving him another couple of games. I think as good as he is, it really showed that he's been frozen out. And I think that's hence why he probably got subbed off at 67 minutes, yellow card or not. I think that he was probably huffing a bit. So I think that he's going to get better and better. I would still persist with playing him, in my opinion, at a double pivot position. So or at the very least, if we're going to go back to a back four, put him on as a right back. But it'd be interesting to see if we had to do that, whether him and Fatu would get in each other's way, similar to Victor Christensen and Mavrididi.
Yeah. Lux, talk to me. I hear you might have a question for the panel.
Sorry, yeah. The only reason I'm butting in is because my camera's like on low battery after that watch along, so I don't know how long I'm here for. It's on Ricardo. I said before the game, and maybe it was me being super negative and maybe overly critical of Cooper, but I think Neil just mentioned it about the rhetoric. Do you think now that Ricardo might be thrown under the bus after that, and he might just be put in the bomb squad again? Because look, it looks like Christensen might be injured, and it seems maybe potentially the only reason Ricardo played is because he was injured. But he did come into the team. He slotted into that position just like last season. It was like muscle memory for him, just slotting back in there next to Winks. But do you think now that is Cooper? Maybe he's going to be like, "Look, I told you so," in a way, saying, "Look, we were better off without him." Not, obviously he won't say it to the press, but maybe just how he acts and his pick, his team selection in the future. I want to ask Manny this. I want Manny.
Yeah, I was going to say that's literally who I was going to pass it to.
Well, we've had two wins this season, right? And from what I can remember, one of those wins was half an hour of Enzo ball, and that's why we won. And the other one was Cooper ball for the whole match. Tailored two halves. Well, so we've had 8 attempts at Cooper ball, and we've won once. And we've had 1.5 attempts of Enzo ball, and we've won once. Is that good enough answer?
I will say this. I said to you at halftime, Lux, on your stream that I called Ricardo getting substituted, and it had nothing to do even with his performance. It's that he was on a yellow card, so you had to. And if you notice, what did Forest do? They took off Alex Moreno, who was on the yellow card against Fatu. That's the Premier League. You have to make subs like that when you've got 5 subs, otherwise you'll get killed. And fair play, he was getting cooked by Hudson-Odoi, who had a brilliant game. He was very, very good. So I don't think that's necessarily the issue. But for sure, I think actually the next game is a cup game, if I'm right in saying. It's not actually Ipswich, right? We play Man United in the cup, so we might not even... Okay, so Lux has gone. He's dropped the mic on there. So I tell you what, let me come back to you, Neil. Do you think, because it's going to be the key question, do you think he will stick with this system, or do you think that he'll have seen enough and he'll be like, no, lads, I went your way and it didn't work?
The truth is that I really don't know. For me, the decision what he decides to make, because I made this on, I think, a video on Monday mentioning that. What does he do from here? He saw a way of playing, and we haven't seen a full 90 minutes of Cooper, under Cooper, let's be honest. In his system, now we've seen a bit of let's be honest, we've seen half an hour of Enzo's system. We've not seen a full 90 minutes. Yes, we played the 90 minutes of it, but we regressed in the second half. Some people think it's the players aren't fit. I think personally it's because, again, players like Buonanotte haven't been coached in this position, and they've just kind of potentially even let the players take over. For me, it was frustrating, but I don't know what he does. If he's a stubborn manager, he will go, right, well, we tried your way, and going back to my style. I've got a feeling he'll give it a couple more goes, and Ricardo might be the player that will come in and go, do you know what, we're going to give you a go, and we're going to see what happened. You got to remember, people like Mavrididi was dropped out of the team initially as well. And then he started to find his form. Fatu, again, he was dropped out of the team, and then he had a brilliant performance, kept his performance. So for me, it was, I don't know what he's going to do, but for me, that would tell me more about what Steve Cooper is as a man. Is he going to be stubborn? And do you know what? Credit to him for making this and having this opportunity to change when we've had 45 minutes of great football against Southampton. But it shows you as well the difference between Southampton, who are a relegation candidate, compared to a mid-table team. And I know they're sitting in 5th at the moment, between like a mid-table team and Southampton, and the gap is pretty drastic.
Yeah. Well, do you know what? I mean, I think Tito blew here. I think this, you've got to be, say, objectively, this is correct. Just say one shot on target, full stop. The boys we wanted back didn't meet expectations. Now, I wouldn't necessarily label that at the ones who came into the team, but I would say this, the team today absolutely has to take that on the chin, because that's the reality, you know, that we didn't do it. And also, I mean, I'm just going to quickly show the Forest lineup, but Forest actually didn't make a single change from their team that beat Palace. So that is saying something that, you know, we should have started fresher. They did make subs later on and their team did the business. But what I'm going to do a bit earlier than normal is I'm actually going to run through the players and get your take on it, because I think that's the best way to do it. So I'm going to start with you, Luke. What did you make of Mad's overall performance today?
It's a bit harsh. I think, like, at first I thought it was poor for him to concede that first goal, but then you saw from where there was placement, it was right in the corner. There wasn't much he could do. I think that because of how shocking the defense was in that second half, he just full lost confidence in the defense in front of him. You see him was running out a lot more, making some more brash challenges to win the ball, and he kind of had no choice because you just didn't trust him. But look, I think he wasn't at his. I don't know what you want me to say, to be honest. If you asked me to give it a score, I'd give him a 6 out of 10.
Okay, I think he was better than that because he saved an absolute surefire goal. But I was wondering if you thought he might be at fault for the fast goal. But for me, he wasn't. I know that they said on commentary he got caught in no man's land, but I think you expect your defender to deal with it a bit better. So we've already talked about him, but I will come to him again. This time I'll come to you, Neil, because here's an interesting comment. I reckon Ricardo won't play again. Did you see body language when he went off? Fats will come on as a sub, not up to top defenders, wasteful. What do you think of that?
I don't think. I think he'll come on. I think you will see more of him. If Cooper is gone, do you know, I'm going to give you a chance. I saw some good stuff there. Again, it's not necessarily like he wasn't dragged at half time. He was on a yellow. And again, tactically, as you mentioned, we need to make these substitutions. The thing is, we don't have a like-for-like replacement for him. The player who was playing him last season was Chowdhury. Chowdhury is not obviously in the squad now because of an injury. Who else have we got? James Justin's probably the next player, but obviously he's playing left back. And then you got to put Christensen or Luke Thomas there. So I think Ricardo is that out-and-out fit. I think he's got to get adjusted back to the system. And when he gets going, I think he's a player that can adapt this system really, really well. And I think that it was there were some points in the first half. I want to take people back, not just the second half. The points where we were winning the ball back in good position, the 1-2s were carrying on. And I think Ricardo was part of that. If he gets up to speed and we see the Ricardo that we saw from last season, he can adapt to Premier League football. We all know it and this system, but it is reliant on him. And I think he can be there, but he wasn't at it today. And that's okay because, again, I think somebody mentioned the right word was rusty. And I think he was a bit rusty in this game, but I think he can continue with this team if we play this formation.
Yeah. Here's an interesting comment though, that every time Cooper tried to play more attractive football at Forest, they got beat. That is something that their fans did tell us about that. Okay, let's come on to this individual who I think it's fair to say had a bit of a stinker. So Manny, talk to me about Wout Fast.
He had his bad game. You know, he has them 1 in every 8 to 10 games. He has an absolute nightmare. He showed hints of it against Southampton where he nearly scored the own goal. And today was pretty bad. And there are some worrying points about his game when he's moving backwards towards his own goal and stuff. But I'm not going to hate on him because I think he's actually been pretty good this season and he's made an absolute ton of blocks, a ton of stops. And, you know, get the bad game out of your system and I bet you he's excellent next game.
Okay, I hope so, because I was going to ask if you think he would be dropped for the next game.
You can't have too much reactionary bias in this and just say whoever has a bad game or a bad hour, they're going to be dropped for the next game. It's just no way to build anything, just basing it on that. It's no way to show confidence in a player as well. If you're just going to say to someone, if you make a mistake, you're out of the team, that's it. You're going to lose players pretty quickly like that. You've got to show some loyalty and look at the picture overall. And overall, I think he's actually been pretty good this season.
Yeah, I tell you what, this is, I think, one of the most interesting comments so far, and I'll explain why. Joe Smith. So central defenders not helped by midfield losing their 50-50s. So what happened at the start of the game is I don't think that Forest expected us to play the way that we did. So we were able to basically incite their defensive front four into trying to challenge the ball, and either Ricardo or Winks would play the bounce pass between one another and we would take them out of the game and start our attacks. And that's how actually we scored our goal. But it was notable that after that goal, they started pressing both Ricardo and Winks a lot more heavily than they did before. And definitely in the second half, they stopped those guys getting going a lot. And it meant that every time they turned the ball over from those two, they were getting opportunities. Now, what I would say with regards to this comment is that is basically the system in a nutshell. Because as I say, it's like if those two do their job correctly, it will generate an attacking opportunity for us. But equally, if the opposition can stop them, it can be curtains quite quickly. The reason why you have two of them is to give yourself a bit more insurance when you're trying to do it. So keeping that comment in mind, but I'm going to move on to Caleb Okoli. I'm going to pass this one over to you, Luke. What did you think of that? And also maybe, because I mean, Caleb made a bit of a stinker also, didn't he, for Chris Wood's first goal? So what did you make of his performance today?
Yeah, I thought Okoli had a very poor second half. I thought first half, not too bad, but this was definitely not one of his better games today. I think he was poor. Like, he turned the ball over quite a lot. And like, I was giving him credit the other day saying, you know what, he's going to get better, and especially working with Winks. But yeah, today wasn't the best from Okoli.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a pretty simple way of doing it. Okay, I'm going to hand the next one of the bomb squad that was our central defence today over to you, Neil. James Justin, talk to me.
I think Anthony Alanga gave him a run around, to be honest with you. I think that's just mainly because Alanga's a better player. And I don't think I just think he got caught out with sometimes. I don't think he quite understood his role, but I just don't think today was his day in the game. So it's different when you had Southampton, they were backing offers with 10 men, but against when you're one-on-one with your defender, Alanga was and he's been embarrassing people as well. I don't blame him because it's not his natural position, but yeah, today wasn't his game.
Yeah. Here's an interesting comment, more reference to Okoli rather than Justin, but Simon with the central back three with Ricardo inverting looked worse without Vesti. Is Vesti alive, by the way? Now, this is an interesting comment. I know what you mean. I think we lacked his distribution coming out. That can help you actually get out when your midfield's being pressed. But I will say there were a few examples in that second half where basically we only had two men back and Forest were on a break, and Okoli actually dealt with it quite well. And if that was Vestergaard, there's no chance in the month of Sundays that he's catching Alanga or Hudson-Odoi. So I wonder what you make of that, Simon. Be interesting to get your feedback in, but I know what you're saying there. Manny, I'll come to you. Do you know what, actually, even though he's just, but yeah, I can tell you what, because he's your favourite boy.
He's my boy.
Talk to me.
Not the best day from Wilf, I don't think. Again, I think the eights, one of the jobs of the eights in the system is to try and get past the winger if the defender gets tight to you. So if you can't take him on one-on-one, you've got that inside ball for the eight running to the touchline, and then he's going to chip it to the far post. We saw that move with Dewsbury Hall, and we saw that move from Wilf. And I didn't really see Wilf getting into that position, linking up with Fatu like he does often. And I didn't see him playing on the left eight side, doing it with Maddison either too much. He was in midfield trying to go that way. And I didn't think he had a bad game as such, but I think both eights didn't do the wingers any favours by running those overlapping runs to try and give them options. So that's an area that they need to work on for sure.
Yeah, I would say that both eights were not playing in the correct positions in this game, not how they would be playing last time round. Oh, here we go. Another statsman's come up. Talk to me, Neil. What's this going to be? Anything with reference to Ndidi or? Okay, I mean, do you know what? This is interesting with the passing networks. So I think this says you a lot, right? So the thing that I would notice on this immediately is you can just see how much more direct Forest are, which is something we knew about it, right? So they're looking to hit 14 Hudson-Odoi and 21 Elanga as fast as possible. Of course you would. Makes total sense. Nothing wrong with that. We won a Premier League doing a similar strategy. You can also see with Leicester that what you see is that back five, if you include Ricardo there, just how much higher up the pitch they were. That's the highest we've probably been all season. Look, compare Mad's average position to Matt Sells of Forest. So we're looking to try and get on the ball and dictate play and pass it around. Much more intricate passing networks, which is correct. You can see how Winks is literally in the central spot. So the quarterback running the game. We'll come to Harry in a moment. Be interesting to see what you think of it. You can see Vardy playing the false nine. I thought he linked play well. I don't want to give spoilers. We can talk about it. But I will say one thing, though, and this kind of brings my point. So number 6 is Ndidi. Now, I suppose, to be fair, it's average pitch position. So the thing is that's going to take into account the half an hour that he played in the double pivot. But otherwise, if I'm being honest, I would actually say that these positions are kind of correct. Like, this is where I'd expect them to be. Maybe Fatu could be a bit higher and wider like Mavididi was. But Ricardo, his position is like that because he's drifting in between a central midfield and a right back. So, of course, his average pitch position is going to be in the middle of that. Vardy's the false nine there, and Buonanotte is slightly past him. What you'd ideally want is Ndidi to be equal to him on the other side. But as I say, because he's played as a double pivot, you're not going to get that. Any comments from either Luke or Manny on that?
I think your problem is with you see Mavrodini's isolated though. It completely negates his options. He doesn't have too many options. You're relying on him to do something one-on-one. And if you come against a robust, decent fullback, and I thought both of their fullbacks had good games today, then that side is going to struggle. He's always going to, even if he can get past his winger, then he's still got a fair gap to the rest of his players. So he doesn't have an easy cross or an easy option that side. So I think it's key that whoever plays that left 8 has to be running beyond him as much as possible and trying to get to the touchline. And how many times do we actually get to the touchline today? The wingers, all the 8s. And if we're not doing that, then we're not pulling their defenders away and trying to create more space in the central areas for the likes of Buonanotte.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm going to come over to you, Luke. Let's talk about the the quarterback. We literally just saw the stats. Thank you, Neil, with the assist there. So talk to me about the quarterback of the team, Harry Winks. What did you make of his performance?
So I want to ask and talk to you all about this. So I thought he was excellent in that first half on the Enzo system in the double pivot position. He is the most crucial player, as we just mentioned. He is the quarterback. I do fault him, though, for that second goal. A lot of people blame Fast, but if you watch that dodgy pass to Fatu, like right next to him, that turned the ball over, and that's what invited pressure. So you blame, I think it was Buonanotte for the first goal, or JJ, second Winks. But anyway, staying on Winks, I think going forward, if we are to play the system, obviously you have to keep him in. And I think it's worth mentioning as well that this is the second game where Skip didn't, or there was another game that Skip didn't come on, Samare did. So in the double pivot position, my question is to you guys, do we persist with Harry Winks regardless of what system we play?
That's a really good question. I'll throw that out to our chat panel here as well, anyone who's watching the stream today. What I would say with Harry Winks is that I actually think he was one of our better players, but he was definitely at fault for that second goal. I mean, it wasn't just his fault, but once he's made that bad pass, and that is the brutal nature of the Premier League. How about you, Neil? What do you make of Winks? Do you think we persist with him going forwards, or do you think this is a wake-up call today?
No, I think we persist. I think we persist. I think we have to keep playing him, giving him the ball, and I think we've got to let him do what he does best. Because you look at the game against Southampton, and Southampton are a much worse team, in my opinion, than Nottingham Forest. Without him in the team, we get, and it wasn't Skip or Ndidi's fault essentially, but because there was somebody calling for the ball and then distributing it. What they did really well is they started to mark him out the game. But the difference is you've got other players that can then ping the ball around. And what you need is then, again, Ricardo to get on the ball more. You need the wingers to go, as you mentioned, higher and wider, taking that. And also the play needs to be switched more. And that's something that needs to be a lot better at the moment. And I would persist with him going forward because I think out of all midfielders, he offers something better and different than the other ones do from an attacking and a possession point of view.
Yeah, here's an interesting one for you, Manny. So, felt like our defenders were facing one-on-ones all game long. Not enough coverage from wingers or midfielders. Surely that will annoy Cooper.
Well, I mean, there's always the problem with it. Whenever you lose the ball, you're going to look like you're short on numbers at the back because you're overloading, committing to midfield. But you are trying to commit to your attack. So whenever they get the ball, they're going to look pretty dangerous. You're going to have hairy moments. That is just the weakness of the system. There's no perfect way. But the theory is you'll gain more in attack than you will do in defence. So I think we be very careful not to overreact to a game where 3 players have made 3 individual errors. You know, it's the structurally, we actually had control of the ball. We had control of the game. If you refine that process, and do you remember early on last season when Enzo brought this to us? I think the question was asked after about 6 or 8 games, you know, what far percentage do you think we are into this system? And he said about 20%, 30%, and we're building. And Cooper himself is learning this for the first time. And he hasn't really trained us this way before. He arguably it's potentially player-led. It was interesting that he was speaking to, I think it was Connor Cody at half-time, and you saw them having an intense chat. You guys might not have seen that.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Cody was managing the team. That's what it looked like to me.
What do you think?
We'll get to that. I just want to say, I think it's clear we've just been raided by one of the Forest streams ended. That we will say everything. You guys played very well. You totally deserved your win today. But please do keep the language clean in chat. Otherwise, I will step in and I'll do a better job than some of our CDMs did today in terms of sweeping up there. So that was a good comment. I'll pass that on to you, Neil. So what did you make of the Cody and Cooper situation at half time?
I mean, it was really interesting because, again, the body language, obviously we couldn't hear what they were saying, but it was like, I've never seen that before. Where the only one that I've seen similar, if you can remember in the Euro finals where Portugal won, and it was like the manager, it was Ronaldo that was the manager rather than the actual manager himself. That's the only example. I've never seen something like that where the manager's being told, but this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to play, or this is what we need to do in the second half. I've never seen.
I have to say,
like
I've seen it quite a lot. I've seen Luka Modric do it many times. I've seen Guardiola do it when he was a player, when he was at Brescia in his last season, when he went to Italy. You'd be surprised. And normally that type of player is the one that becomes a manager. It wouldn't surprise me if Cody's thinking about doing that. Luke, talk to me about Steffi Mavadidi. Just going to bring up a few comments here. Too much pressure is put on the defensive players. You'll get mistakes. I'm not sure about. I know that is true, but I mean today, it's pretty bad individual errors to say.
You've got to play out from that as well.
Yeah.
We Enzo invited the pressure in order to play out. So that when we did that, we played out from the position, and then we were going ahead.
Yeah, Luke, do you want to talk about the Cody management situation and also throw Mavadidi in there?
No, Mavadidi. So, I agree with what Manny was saying, and you too. I think that the eights were on the wrong side, and they were lacking support. The wingers were lacking support from the eights as well. Question is, I thought Mavadidi, he wasn't bad. He had moments that he had a decent shot. I know it was wide, but it was not bad. And I think that, do you think that going forward, we should be playing Buonanotte as that left-sided 8? That's where I thought he was going to be playing, where Juice Bihor was, because Mavadidi is not used to working with Ndidi on that side when we're under Enzo ball. So he might have thrown him off a bit. There has to be a little bit of team chemistry there. So my thoughts are, I thought that Bilal would have been good in that higher position when he came on, but we had changed shape by that point a little bit. So I would like to see Bilal, and as I thought Ndidi had a poor game. So I'll go to you with this, Manny. Do you think next game against Ipswich, if we are to play the Enzo system as a high 8, should we start with Bilal and Buonanotte instead of Ndidi? But for what it's worth, to finish with Mavadidi, sorry, I did think he was poor, but it wasn't his best game.
I would like to see the same team. I think Forest had the structure and the personnel style with 2 decent fullbacks and 2 pacey wingers to cause us a problem, and Ipswich don't have that. We've also tried to play this way against Ipswich twice last season, and although I think we got 2 draws, we absolutely dominated both games. I think there were 2 late draws that they scored in. And one key element of this, which I didn't see today, just to highlight that stretching of the 8, is, I don't know if you boys have seen The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary. If you've seen that, there's one of the episodes, they go into Phil Jackson, the Chicago Bulls coach, talking about the triangles in attack out wide, if you guys remember that.
Ted Lasso as well.
That was a basketball system that they've evolved. It's about trying to get 3-on-2s out wide. And that triangle exists out wide. So Mavadidi, for example, was on one wing. Somebody makes a run to the touchline. Mavadidi has a triangle with the person who's run beyond him and an insider option, whoever that might be. We didn't see any of that today. So the system is fine, but there are elements of the system that were missing this evening that we need to work on.
Totally agree. There's some interesting comments. Sean James, why not try Bilal there? I think he means on the left wing. He naturally drifts his left, so that could help on that side. I have to say, I actually thought he might do that because I think the way that Forest were always going to sit on a 3-1 lead is you might go more for the creative player. So instead of trying to beat the player one-on-one, you're looking for the passing. So that's an interesting one, but he didn't. He went for the high 8. Let's come to this, which is here we go. Who can tell me what style of play we played tonight? Well, we went for Enzo's system for about the first 60 minutes. And then really, I think it was a very poor reaction from the players to going 3-1 down. I think for me, that's the saddest thing. It's not just the individual errors, but after 3-1, we just totally gave up. And then Cooper changed the system. And you know what? The thing is I wouldn't even necessarily blame him for that, because the thing is that the players were not exactly hanging their heads in glory at that moment in time. And I think that is a bit sad. I would actually say it's the first time I've seen this season where it looked like we gave up. And here's an interesting comment. From what I saw, we lacked physicality. So many times our players were on the floor. We were bullied. I think there's an element of that. Do you want to take that, Neil? And you can talk to me also about Fatu in that.
Fatu came alive. I think he faded towards the end of the game where it seemed like if we were going to get anything from the game, it was all going to be down his side. And I think he potentially ran out of steam. But he started really strong. I think a couple of times he was getting into good positions and Facundo Buonanotte wasn't finding him. Once he wasn't finding him, wasn't looking for him. And this season, for the under Enzo, it's under Steve Cooper, it's been like Buonanotte's been, I've got to try something because nothing else is going to happen. Now, in this system, you've got other players to bring in. And I think he still thinks he's playing in that system where he goes, it's all up to me. I've got to try. Let's be honest. The game against Bournemouth, where he scored that brilliant goal. Again, he took on loads of players and put it in top bins. Brilliant. But you can't rely on that game in, game out. And I think that's what he thinks he needs to deliver to the team. And in the beginning of the game, he started to offer that. But and I'm jumping around all over the place, aren't I?
No, of course he would be. Yeah.
But in this system, he started to then pick up those balls. He started to pick up Fatu on that right-hand side and started to play the ball in, and we started to get some joy. The only problem with Fatu was he was expecting Ndidi, I think, to run and provide that support, so it wasn't just one-on-one the entire time. Forrest did a good job of stopping him cutting in on the other side as well. So he tried to do it a couple of times, and they're like, no, we're going to put two men there, so you definitely can't do that.
Yeah, no, one of their CDMs moved over there. That was a tactical tweak they made. That was good from them, from Nuno up high, got the view. Some really good comments. I've got to say, Joe Smith, 2 great comments today. So another one, Facundo Buonanotte needs to be given a quota for attacking passes to Vardy and Fatu. And I know what you mean there, because there was one time in the second half where he could easily have played in Vardy and he went for a very selfish shot instead. And Manny, I think, was saying, well, he's a young player, he's going to have that, you're going to learn, which I agree. But I think Enzo would have been screaming at him. He managed to change Fatu from lashing it to playing in the right man at the right time. You mentioned this several times, Manny. So you know what? You take on Buonanotte in total. Buonanotte didn't help with the right channel runs. I know this is going to be a bit recycling what you've already said, but hash it into the greatest hits for me, please.
He's trying to play as an individual 10. You know, he comes from an Argentinian history of great 10s, great attacking little players that can create things and do things and become the star of the show. And today he kind of felt to me a little bit like, don't care what Steve Cooper said, just get me the ball in the central area and I'll make something happen myself. And the players were trying to link up with him, but he wasn't looking necessarily to link back with them. I think there was a little bit of a worrying sign from him today that he wasn't structured and disciplined. And he's essentially just being a little bit greedy and trying to play too solo at times.
Yeah. Now, I only would say, though, my slight worry is can the manager coach that out of him? Because that's the thing with Cody at halftime and how he was talking to Cooper. It's like you can still see that the structure there is quite good, but what the tweaking does need is the 8. And the problem is I don't really see, is Cooper going to be able to work it out himself and look at the positions that they take up and why they're taking up there? Because otherwise that is going to be an issue consistently throughout the season, that they, you know, the issue of a system is that if one part of the system isn't working, the whole thing will collapse. So it's a very delicate balance. I mean, one thing I will say, you obviously didn't see it in the second half, but in the first half, I actually thought that our winning back of the ball from the high press was the best it's been all season. We just didn't really see it in the second half because we gave the ball away. So again, it shows you when a system works, you can push up higher because you'll win it back fast and you'll be able to get the transition and takeover.
But
Matty
credit
B14
to Forrest as well, who cut the passing lanes out of Ricardo and Winks a lot better in the second half than they did in the first
100%.
I'll come to you, Luke, on this just quickly because I want to throw you this comment because I think this is very relevant maybe to what you're about to say. Forest's missed chances were actually better shots than their actual goals. I think the times they cut us open and they missed, they actually was way better than what. That's not an insult, by the way. I'm saying they genuinely created some high XG opportunities against us, and funnily enough, they scored the ones that were low. So it didn't help that Okoli and Fast simultaneously had their worst games of the season, but maybe that ties into the system. So Luke, over to you.
So I got a lot to say. So first of all, going to that comment, there was like one chance where it hit the post. There was one chance, I think it was Yates, I can't remember who, that just missed an absolute sitter and skied it over. So they had a lot of chances. We could have got mugged, a proper mugging in that game if it went for Mads in a few scenarios and dodgy shots. But look, back to what Neil was saying earlier, and to finish it off, Buonanotte, yeah, look, when you're like one of those types of players and you're having the season you're having, like kind of similar to James Maddison, you've got that arrogance, that 10 position, you deserve to, take a shot and like take those ambitions, especially when you're playing the way you are. You don't get those worldies unless you take those chances. But when you've got Fatu and acres of space and presenting that option, as Neil said, when you've got that support, after like 2 or 3 misses, you want to coach it out. That's when you have to be like, look, mate, like you've got to start laying it off, or I'm going to sub you off and bring Bilal on. I think the problem was with that game as well, to wrap it up as well, in terms of where we got pressed, was, yes, Neil's right. We got the double pivot got targeted, and both their wingers rinsed our fullbacks. So we got beaten with their wingers. Double pivot got targeted and cut out, and then the centre backs behind it were calamitous because of that, for that reason, in my opinion. So Faze and Nicole, there was a whole formation issue in terms of like building it out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, here we go. Jack Toes, I'm so angry by the defending. It was League One defending. Only Buonanotte, Winks, Vardy and Mads were good. The rest forget. And Cooper needs to train a squad of how to defend, because that was just embarrassing. I mean, yeah, I think those individual errors, I think this is one of those things where it's not necessarily on the manager. So first goal, Buonanotte could just clear it. He tries to jink past someone 6 yards from his own goal. That's always a bad decision. Then JJ gets the second opportunity to clear it, miscues it, and they're in. So poor, twice we had the opportunity to clear our lines. Second goal, trying to play out from the back. Winks makes a bad pass to Fatu. He gets robbed. It's not immediately turned into a goal, but then it gets turned over. Okoli, could Okoli have done better against Wood for that second goal? I think it was a good finish, but Manny's nodding. He's not the biggest fan there.
Got to get tighter to the right foot and stop that shooting lane. There's only one way he can shoot with his right foot there. And if you look at sticking the leg out, he didn't really stick the leg out with any kind of commitment or properly. He wasn't anticipating that Wood would take the shot. Wood took the shot slightly early, and he was just slightly delayed in his reaction. So, yeah, I think he was at fault there.
Yeah, fair play to the Forest fans. I got to say, we didn't think... Well, I think a lot of people predicted Wood would score, but we didn't think he'd score 2, and he was clinical. I have to say he was absolutely superb today, and I think would deservedly get man of the match for those 2 finishes. I think even the second one is impressive because it's fast thinking, and he thinks they're head over, pretty easily.
He showed pace to outpace Fast as well. I know Fast isn't the quickest, but I mean, Chris Wood's even bigger than Fast, and he showed gas to outpace him, which is a slightly worrying.
Yeah. Jamie Vardy, who wants to talk to me about him? Neil, do you want to talk to me about JV?
I mean, I'm so glad he got his goal today. I think didn't really have too much to go off, and his false 9 positioning was great. He got in the right position for the goal. Again, it's just what we need from him in this system. And I thought when he scored in the 23rd minute, I thought, we're back. We're back. We're coming. Leicester City and Vardy getting the goal as well. I was, and then he kind of faded towards the game. I think partly because he's not got the energy he used to. But again, for me, he didn't really, and then the ball wasn't getting to him. He was playing some nice 1-2, but again, just like the first half he played some great football. I think I'm frustrated for him, but I think because the service, and again, it didn't help with Buonanotte being too selfish with the chances as well. Yeah. If you give Vardy in that position, he's going to spread the ball wide. He's going to bring other people into the game. He's going to expect Buonanotte to run off him, and he's going to try and get the ball to him. And also, you're going to remember that when he's playing the false 9, he's expecting Wilfred Ndidi to go the other way, who didn't, as we saw from the stats, didn't really do that as well. But I don't think it was Vardy's fault for pretty much anything, really, but he took his goal well. And again, he's got 1 chance, 1 shot on target, 1 opportunity. I don't think he did really much else in the game. I think there was there an opportunity where he kind of fluffed his irons a little bit from a set piece. That's the
one where it came over the top of him, but it was a tricky one. But that was a well worth saving. I mean, I would say I think Vardy in the first half was pretty good. I think he played the false 9 really well. He linked up the play quite well. He drifted around and he made some good key passes. Second half didn't get the ball to him, so he was pretty much non-existent. And I think that will kind of come on to, I mean, rather than the subs, I mean, I'll speak about Cooper. So I think there's a lot to talk about here, right? So I think first and foremost, he's got to be given a lot of credit for going back to the original system that worked for us in the Championship last season. And I think the players have let him down today in terms of their individual defending. But what I'd like to raise is an interesting point. So it's 60 minutes. He decides to try and do something, which, again, I would applaud, right? Because we were 3-1 down and we didn't look like we were going to get anything out from it. and then he makes some subs, and then we just basically go to more of like a 3-4-3, right? No inverted fullback, just regular three, that kind of system. Do you think? Well, what do you make of that? Do you think that was like he looked clueless and he didn't know what to do? Do you think he actually tried to do something and it didn't work? So he's brought on Jordan Ayew, he's brought on Bilal El Khanous, he brought on Puba Samare, who Manny was giving a shout out to. So I'll pass it over to you, Manny. What do you think about him overall, given that I think we're saying that, he was kind of sabotaged by the players a little bit. I mean, I would actually use those words. I mean, I've been very negative about Cooper this season, but I think, especially the first and third goals are like just pure calamity. What can you really do as a manager when your team's doing that?
I mean, it's, as a manager, there's not a lot you can do when an individual makes an individual error. If there's a structural error, how somebody got through you, and it's like if somebody sticks one from 35 yards and you can't really legislate for that. And I understand what he's trying to do. There's 20, 25 minutes to go. He's trying to roll the dice like he did against Southampton, and it worked against Southampton, and it didn't work tonight. And he's trying to do something different. But the one thing I would say is when you play this way, one key characteristic of playing this way is no matter what the situation is, no matter what the scoreline is, you don't change to a plan B. You just have to keep trying to play plan A faster or better. And I think tonight was an occasion where we have to suck it up today. We got outplayed. They exploited our weaknesses. We looked a bit rusty, but in 60 minutes, 70 minutes trying to change is not really something that Pep or Maresca or any of those other protagonists would do. So again, I don't want to confuse the players too much. 1 minute it's a 4-2-3-1, then it's a 3-2-4-1, then you're changing it to a 3-4-3. We look like the players are like, well, what minute is it? What are we playing at the moment? Simplify the whole thing. We play one way from first minute to last, and that's it.
Can you do that though when Ricardo's on the booking? Maybe not that much fit, which admittedly might be Cooper's fault, and you haven't got an inverted player that you can bring into that position.
I think at that stage you have to gamble with probably a player out of position, and you have to maybe give it to Skip. We've said that Skip's quite mobile. He's got a bit of speed. He's reasonably robust. He can cover the right back role if we in an absolute emergency for 15, 20 minutes. And yes, what we should have done is actually, if we'd have knew we were going to play this way at the start of the season, maybe in the summer transfer window, we might have bought players of a profile suited to play this exact way, rather than having a bit of a mishmash.
Yeah. Interesting here. Cam, I think, is a Forest fan. Cooper will probably keep you up, but you may need to look elsewhere in the future. I mean, I think that's exactly why he's been appointed to do exactly that. I think he will, though. Jake, I think this week needs to be a stay humble reminder to the squad. The mentality was definitely lost last week, or I think you mean this week compares to previous. Which that's what's really a shame, though, is that last week we showed an amazing fighting spirit to get a win out of a loss. And in this one, we've done what the players wanted and they gave up. That's a bit weird, if you ask me. Cooper, the man who threatens to deceive and consistently disappoint. Perhaps. It wasn't the first time this season Buonanotte has tried to dribble out of trouble in a defensive position this season. Cooper should have told before. Perhaps, definitely. Cam says, Sean Dyshoff wish. Maybe. We'll see. I mean, it definitely does look like he's not the best at a coaching and attacking system. Look, what I would say to give Forest credit, so they made a few tactical tweaks that worked really well. So as I said, I think what they did is they started pressing the double pivot, and they also made another change where their CDM Dominguez, who I think was on the left-hand side, he started drifting out to double up on Fatu to give them an additional man there. And then they started winning the ball back higher. And then because they won the ball back higher, did you notice how Chris Wood didn't really see much of the ball in the first half, but the second half, all of a sudden he got the ball because they turned the ball over when we didn't have our men back to support it. So obviously they got Wood the ball, and then fair play to him. He was absolutely amazing. 2 clinical finishes. So what I guess I'm raising here is this is always the problem when you're going to go for a system like that, is that how do you get around it, right? Because the thing is that, say, if I'm Kieran McKenna right now, even, watching that game, and I'm thinking, okay, Leicester might start off with their 3-2-5 that they did last season. What do you do? And I'm thinking, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to close down the double pivot, right? And also maybe double up on Fatu because Mavididi looks like he's off form. So given that's in the air, what can we do? Luke, what do you think about that?
What we can do early on the ball.
not aerially, but let's say that we're getting pressed on the. I was catching you sleeping there, by the way, as well. That's why I called you out. I would sub
Sorry.
Luke off right now. That's what I would say. His work rate's not high enough for this stream.
You gotta remember that it's like what,
Yeah.
4 or 5 in the morning now.
I got up at quarter to 3 for this. Look, I'm not gonna. No, I'm still here. I was just patiently waiting my turn. I think I'm not gonna. I agree with everything that you said. I think I'm not gonna pile on Steve Cooper because he played exactly the starting 11 we wanted to see and the formation we wanted to see. I think there's something to be said. We've got some players that haven't played that Enzo system, like Boyanote and a few others, and Bilal, Ayu. But what I will say is that we've got to have consistency now. We have to keep playing this system because there was a few times where we saw the patterns of play were just there with the Enzo ball of, the best parts of, like, let's say the first 15 minutes, some of the passing was pure sexy and we were carving them apart. And then we are unfortunate from a stupid error to concede a goal. So I'm not going to pile on Steve Cooper. I'm just going to say, keep playing the system, stick with it, because you don't want to be confusing the lads and like constantly changing shape. And then that's when people start getting caught out. Or you saw a few times, like there was a comment early in the stream. I think it might have even been on Lox's. Do you remember when there was Fatu? There's a moment where he pushed that ball forward where usually Ndidi would be there and it just went straight to Sells. And it was like, what are you doing now? Was that that pass was way too poor just to be an error. I just think that he's used to someone running in, whether it be Ndidi dinking the ball in. So, like I said, I'm not going to pile in on Cooper, but if you're going to play this system, you've got to make those small tweaks, and we've got to have people making runs. There was a few times where Bilal, it was Ayu got the ball on the left-hand side, and Bilal could have made an option. He just stayed behind. Ayu can't take on 3 people. So that's going back to where the Cooper system is poor. Anyways, rant over. I'm still awake. Don't worry. I'm still here, lads.
No worries. Well, look, I think we're going to kind of wrap up the stream. I'll give it just a few more minutes in case anyone wants to jump into any comments. I mean, fair comment. Go on, yeah.
There's one thing that we've missed that I think we need to come back to, and that's Mads Hermansen's worldy save at the 25th minute. And I think, again, I just want to give a special shout out to that one because that was reminiscent of Kasper Schmeichel over the years of him saving us, where I go, that's a goal. How's that not got in? And again, incredible save in the 25th minute, which again, another, as you mentioned before, and another comment mentioned it and you brought it up, another great opportunity. And the ball, the way he makes himself so big, the ball ricochets off him from the right-hand side. I thought that's another moment that I've really got to give credit for because that was such a good save. And I don't think it will be spoken enough because people mention the second half, and rightfully so. But it's important to mention the good stuff that happened in the first half an hour, and that was definitely one of the highlights.
Bit depressing though when we've lost 3-1 and we've made a world-class save and they've missed a sitter, isn't it? But that's the reality of where we are. Some good comments here. I'll pile on Cooper for not playing the same attacking midfield 3 in a single game yet. How is anyone going to get used to their system and know their role with a change every week? And Tom's put here, we haven't been consistent for 90 minutes all season. That's down to the manager, coaching, or mentality. So I think those 2 points are very applicable. And I will pass you, Manny, to that because I think that's kind of your point as well. So I guess what the guys are saying is that, if we have one system, we stick with it, then we'll get better at it. But because we're chopping and changing and we're Ranieri tinkermanning it all over the place, of course, people are going to be a bit confused. And maybe because the funny thing is despite the fact that, look, I totally deserve victory for Forest, it's probably the most fluent we've been from a systemic point of view in that first half. So I'm going to let you wrap up the stream. You started it, so I guess you can finish, Manny. Give me your overall closing thoughts and where you think this leaves Steve Cooper and the Foxes going forward.
Well, I mean, the Cooper ball, there is no consistent Cooper ball. We've had 3 different people at left wing. We've had 3 different people at right wing. We've had multiple people in different areas. We've had 3 CDMs on the pitch. We've had every permutation of the 2 and the 3 around at various times. We've had JJ at right back, JJ at left centre back. We've had Ricky finally coming in. We had Vestergaard starting the season. There's very few consistencies apart from Hermansen. And we've always said in most of these games, the players look a little bit confused. We look a bit confused as to what we're trying to do. So the way I would put it is, if you practice exactly the same way all week, every week, you're going to nail it down to a perfect science. If you play one way this week, and then next week it's something else, and you're constantly changing and you're tinkermanning it, how will the players ever get really used and I think I likened it like this on a previous stream, is when you receive the ball, there is that split-second moment where you've got to decide what you want to do with the ball, and then you actually do it. With the system, you already know what you want, what you're supposed to do before you get the ball. So when you get the ball, you can actually execute that task a little bit quicker. That one extra stage of thinking is taken out of the equation. So practice what you preach. Play the same way. Don't change. Give it 7 or 8 games. Don't give it 1 and judge it on Ricky P, who's played his first really competitive league match in 5 months, and say that's a reason to throw it out the window. You know, there were some positive elements, like you said, with Winks and stuff. There was a slight tweak by Nuno in the second half. So maybe as a manager in real time, you can start thinking about how they're trying to block us and find some refinements. But essentially, practicing the same thing every week will lead to at least that system becoming nailed on. And, you know, we all know what the system works.
Thank you. Well, that I think is a perfect way to end the stream. So thank you so much. Going to use Luke from Leicester City Down Under to comment here. If you haven't already, please like this stream and also subscribe to my channel, for fuck's sake, Beyond the 90, which is Neil, and Leicester City Down Under, which is Luke. And also follow the Foss Hub on Twitter, which is where Manny represents. Thank you so much. It wasn't to be. We've lost the Cooper Classic. Some signs of promise, a second half to forget. Thank you all for joining, and we'll see you next time. Next up, I believe it's Man United away in the Carabao Cup. And followed by that, a huge game at Ipswich at Portman Road. We'll see you for those matches. Take care, everyone, and good night. Bye-bye.